But how many know that when you have a purpose and a calling on your life, there's nothing that nobody, and nothing can happen? I am Angela C. Wright.
Over the top, the gotcha.
Oh, he said your numbers has shrunk. He said, I don't know how, why.
You're not gonna get listen. You're gonna have mounds of security for me because you're not gonna get me.
If I wasn't depressed and going through what I was going through, I probably would have never started.
And this episode was brought to you by the Ayers Agency, a full-service marketing firm noted in entertainment and culture. Hey y'all, welcome back to another great episode of Break Phree Podcast with your girl Free. And today, remember when you was younger and there was the Fairy Godmother? Well, today I have the Fairy Brandmother here with me, and she is the woman that you want to bring your vision to life. Not only will she bring it to life, it's built to last. Y'all say hello to the Fairy Brandmother.
Hey y'all.
So how you doing today?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Excuse me. Blessed and highly favored. We love that.
Yes,
I'm so happy that you came. So wait a minute.
I'm happy to be here.
You know, we got to let the people know, baby.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I use, y'all, for all of my brand needs. Like, this logo, she did it.
Hey.
The website, she did my website. The cover of the book, she did it. Like, all my go-to needs has been this lady, and I can't even remember. How did we meet?
I don't even remember, okay? I think someone referred us, because I think I asked you one day, like, do you know this person? You was like, no. I said, I don't know.
You was asking me about somebody from Detroit, a guy. I do remember that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, that wasn't me. Like, I know I sent people your way, but that, that wasn't me. I cannot remember how we met. Oh, I know.
What?
Shout out to Dr. Crystal Berry, Pastor Crystal Berry.
Okay,
yeah,
right.
That was my editor for my book. And
that's right.
You did a book for one of her other clients. Mm-hmm. And she told me when I was trying to think of how I wanted my book cover to go, she was like, I had someone for you. So that's how, and we hopped on a consultation call. And
that's right.
Yeah. So
and we've been inseparable ever since.
Ever since, honey, yes. I have the main number, okay?
Period. And do.
So tell me, like, how did you get started with branding and coming up with these beautiful logos and just building businesses, business cards, websites, everything? Like, tell us, how did you get started?
I know everybody has some type of crazy story in their entrepreneurial journey. Mm-hmm. Mine was just completely left field. So in December 2016, I was homeless. Me and my daughter were homeless. She was about 1.5.
Homeless, like living
in the shelter, homeless. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And ironically, it was because of my father, but that's a whole nother story. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I never thought I would hit that rock bottom, right? But I was in there and I was in a shelter. I didn't have a job, no nothing. And I was like, you know what, God? If you get me out this situation, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to get where you want me to be.
Girl, won't we bargain with God when we down in that
pit?
Won't we bargain with God?
Because I was bargaining, okay?
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is not it, okay? But at the same time, ironically, I had a sense of peace because that was technically my first place by myself where I can lock the door. I didn't have to worry about nobody mad about my daughter crying. So it was like a...
So it was like a private shelter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a women's shelter, women and children's shelter in Brooklyn, New York. And I could close and lock my door behind me. It was a little kitchenette. We had our own bathroom, so I didn't have to share. Mm-hmm. So I still was in a place of gratitude, but I was definitely really, really low.
Did y'all hear that? This lady found gratitude, y'all, in a shelter. Mm-hmm. So that is a lesson in itself right there, to be able to thank God in whatever situation you find yourself in.
Ooh, listen, that was the beginning of it, okay? Mm-hmm. And ironically, while I was in there and, I started to pray more, of course, because what else was I going to do, right?
Yeah.
And God started giving me the idea to start a business. He didn't tell me what or nothing. I was like, well, how am I going to do that? Ironically, a friend of mine called me randomly one day, was like, hey, girl, I know this place called Rising Tide in New Jersey, and they are giving a grant away to teach business classes. So I was like, that's mad far in my mind, I was like, but whatever, I'll apply. Long story short, I got accepted. Mm-hmm. I traveled every week with my daughter to Jersey City from Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, to take those classes. And even by the end of the class, I was still kind of confused because everyone had product businesses. That's easy to say, hey, I have this, as opposed to I can provide a service for you.
Right.
And initially, I wanted to help people get out of where I was at. I was like, you know what? I could do your resume. I could teach you how to go on an interview. I can teach you how to look good because I know how to look good.
Grow where you planted, baby.
Okay?
Yeah.
So at the end of the classes, I was still in the shelter. My class picked me to speak for the class. And I was just like, well, what am I? But I got up there, I told my speech, and I told them, when I leave here, I'm going back to the shelter. And they were all blown away. They had no idea.
I know it wasn't a dry eye in the room.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was actually, it poured more into me than anything else. Because God was like, even in this, watch me take you far, you know? And at the end of the classes, my homegirl, the same homegirl, called me back and was like, hey, girl, so I told somebody that you could build websites. And I was like, where did you get that information? Because I never said that.
Yeah.
You know, and she was like, well, you're good with computers, so I thought that you could. I was like, okay, they're two different things. She was like, well, I gave them your number, and so they're going to call you. I promise you, Free, I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, how do I tell this person I don't know what she's talking about? I took the call. I charged them $150 for a website. That was my first client. I sat and I figured it out.
She does not charge $150 now, okay?
I sure don't. But I was like, I guess I got to figure it out. And I figured it out. And then they told another person, and then that person wanted a site and a logo. So now I got to figure it out. But one of the tasks in the class was to come up with your own logo. So God already had me doing it without me even realizing it.
Yeah.
Each client that I got wanted something else. And before you know it, I knew how to do everything I know how to do now.
Wow.
And at first, I didn't feel like that was my calling until I started to listen to what my clients were telling me. And there were people that would come to me crying like, I've gone everywhere. I spent all of this money, but no one got my vision but you. And it just hit me one day like, yeah, this is where God was bringing you the whole time. This is where you're supposed to be. You had to go through that to get here, because I don't think I would have took that leap to start a business if I wasn't that low.
Right. And then you know what? No, I have to basically like congratulate you even more to even be that low and still to be able to set your sight on starting a business, because let me tell you something. Most time when we're in a position like that, fear will paralyze us. You get what I'm saying? So we will resort to what we know, and what we know is to go get a 9-to-5 job, not to start a business with no money.
You talking right?
Yeah. So you know
right.
that in itself was like kudos to you that you even had the gall, honey.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot of faith. And you know, also with the help of God, because there's a lot of times, I think there's a saying where, like, you know, the footsteps in the sand, where sometimes you'll see two sets, sometimes you'll see one.
Yeah.
And in those moments, if you really, really trust God, you have to allow for him to carry you through. Yeah. And I know there was moments where he was carrying me, because I got a crying baby that don't understand we in the shelter, you know, and she doesn't understand I can't get certain things because I don't have the money right now, while I'm also still trying to figure out how the heck do we get out of here. You know, it was a lot. And also I guess the initial embarrassment too, you know.
Talk about that. Talk about the embarrassment, like how, you know, how you feel shame. Talk about that for a second.
Woo. Well, first things first, watch how you talk about people and their situations, because God will cause for you to be in that very situation and have to humble yourself. Okay,
you better say it.
Because I'm pretty sure at some point in my life I was like, how are they humble? Why are they? I'm sure I did at some point.
Yeah. And
when I got in there, it was just like, I can't believe I'm here and I got a baby and I ain't got no job. It was embarrassing, because how do I tell people how I got here, you know? Everybody always knew me to always have a job or have something going on.
Yeah.
Then there was a part where they donated like clothes, like random things, and they used to leave it in the back room. I refused to walk down that hallway and look in there. I don't know if it was pride.
Yeah, definitely was pride.
It was pride, because I refused. But after a while, I needed things that I couldn't afford. And I went in there one day. I got my first prayer shawl from there.
Okay.
I still use it, honey.
Okay.
Still use it. And I finally just, you know, and I know it was those moments where God was like, come on, daughter, I got you. Just go ahead. You tried everything else.
And then do you see how when you told your story to the class that day, right? Mm-hmm. It freed you, but it freed somebody else in that room.
It did.
Yeah. And that's what I talk about all the time, about not keeping quiet, because we will allow out the embarrassment and some shame. You don't want people looking at you a certain way, or, you know, we're just in prison to people and their thoughts. Yeah. But the more you talk about it, the freer you become. And then in return, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're showing God's grace, God's mercy with somebody else. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm glad you said that, because that's another thing that God has finally brought me out of, is the shame of where I've come from. Instead of me coming from a victim mindset, I now understand that
you victorious, baby.
Baby, don't you make me shout. Is okay. And of course, my story didn't start or even end there. I went through a whole lot prior to that, you know. But I'm finally in a place now where I can talk about things that I've been through and not feel like a victim or feel ashamed. I'm like, yup, been there, done that.
Girl, let me tell you something. You see, I get on a mountaintop and tell them I've been to prison, honey. It does not matter, because what I learned, even you know, with being in church, you know, people want to act like they got it all together.
Talk about
Baby, my grandmother told me, I remember when I got pregnant. And of course, I was not married when I got pregnant. But baby, you know how them people is in that church.
Honey,
oh, she's having a child out of wedlock. But see, I've always had a smart mouth. You know, so one Sunday, and my dad's a pastor. So one Sunday, this lady comes to me and she said, oh, Lord, you ought to be ashamed of yourself having a baby out of wedlock. And I told her, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself for smoking cigarettes out on the church ground when you get out of church and talking about people. Yeah. And my grandmother, when I told my grandmother, you know, that night, she told me, she said, Miss Angie, let me tell you something. You're not the first and you won't be the last. There's nothing new under God's sun.
That's a fact.
Yeah, so that is the thing. Like, people would think like, oh, we got it all together. No, you don't. You just ain't telling your side of the story.
You better say it twice. I went through that too with my daughter. Ironically, when I had her, I stepped away from God for about 7 years until I hit that shelter. Because during my pregnancy, I didn't tell everybody who the father was. So, honey, they was coming up with all kind of scenarios. Oh, it's probably the drummer. It's probably the pastor. And I'm like, I don't even like y'all. In the church.
Oh.
And I didn't tell my business, but I was faithful too. And I used to
Was it the pastor that you was pregnant for?
No, it wasn't. I ain't even like him, honey.
I want to play it.
I ain't even like him. Teddy Ruxpin, go ahead. No. I just was like, why would I don't even like y'all like that, you know? But
it hurt you and like turned you away. Yeah.
It did. And when my daughter came, I was like, I can't raise her up in this. That mentality is corny. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, and I stopped going to church for a long time. Wow. I didn't disconnect from God, but that was also the beginning of me opening my eyes too, because sometimes we get indoctrinated under the traditions and the rigmarole of church, right? You know, that we forget that each of us have a different plight, a different calling, and God has given us different directions.
That's right.
So you have to be open to hear that, you know? So when I disconnected, I actually connected greater and deeper to God, you know? So I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, and look where he's brought you now.
Come on.
And then, you know, I have to point out, too, I don't know where you get your vision from, but I know that with me using you, all I do is call and tell you what I think, what I'm doing. I don't say, I want this color, I want that color, I want none of that. I call, like, for example, I called you and I told you, I was like, look, Sabriya, getting ready to do the podcast. I know I said I've been doing, I need a logo. It's called Break Phree. Send me some ideas of what you think. So how do you do that process when people like me don't have a clue what they want, but they just know, like, this is the name, this is what I want you to do?
So creatives dwell in spiritual places. We have to, because you have to tap into something far beyond your comprehension.
Right.
And I'm thankful God has gifted me to where someone can tell me something, it plays in my mind like a movie. Like it literally just, things just come to me. I know it's God, you know, but things come to me And when it sits right with my spirit, I just go at it and I design it and I bring it to life.
Yeah.
And if whatever don't sit right with me, I discard it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every now and then I overthink about it and be like, they may not like this. But for the most part, it literally comes to me. Everything, all the ideas, and it plays like a movie, like a big screen of just all kind of colors and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's better if you let me just go free.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people will be like, well, I want this and this and this and this and this. It might limit me a little bit.
Yeah.
I can make it happen, but sometimes I'll just go. I'll take your vision and run with it.
So you just get your direction from God.
Directly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just works out.
And it works out.
Because I haven't thought of a time. I don't think of a time where I can't think of a time that I sent something back and said, no, I don't like it.
That's true.
Yeah, I can't
That's
think
true.
of a time. Like, you always give me, I always say, well, just give me 3 options.
Yep.
You know, give me a couple options or whatever.
Right.
But I can't think of a time that I did not like, you know. So it's definitely a gift, and it's good that you recognize that you do have the gift and that God is your source, and that's who you tap into.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So talk about the move to Atlanta, because you was in New York. You have to talk about the move to Atlanta.
Yes.
You have to tell our chain breakers how you got to Atlanta.
So, again, my life is a movie. There's always some craziness. So, right before I moved to Atlanta, I was staying with a friend of mine. I was technically homeless again, but I was staying with a friend of mine because I was at the end of my lease and stuff was happening with my job. And that was a blessing, too, because he told me that his mom was very ill and he worked at night. I was like, well, I work during the day. Like, I can come and help you. And I didn't know that that was going to end up being a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
But I ended up staying there. The house was not in the best conditions. But, again, I was thankful. I said, you know what, God? I'm not in the street.
Right.
I'm not in the shelter. So I had been praying, though, for a while because I'm like, respectfully, I need my own place. My child going crazy. She need her own space. My homegirl calls me one day and was like, girl, I'm stuck at the airport. They told me I can't get on the plane because I got too many bags. So I was like, well, throw your bags in my truck. We out. I'll drive you. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
We drove down to Atlanta. I literally picked her up. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I went to JFK, picked her up. We drove down to Atlanta. So while I was here, I stayed for like 2 days. And I was like, all right, it's time for me to go. This is cute, but whatever, right? Literally the day I was trying to leave, a friend of mine was like, no, stay for the rest of the weekend, because it was like a Thursday. They was like, no, stay for the rest of the weekend and then drive up because it's a long drive. This apartment complex called me here. I never applied nowhere in Atlanta, not once. And they called me like, hey, we're having an open house tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, do you have the right number?
Yeah.
They was like, I think so. Is your name Sabriya Reese? I don't know too many Sabriyas.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes. I said, well, you know what? All right, God. Like, it was one of the moments like, all right. Long story short, by the time I got back to New York, I was approved. I literally threw all my stuff in my truck and drove down.
Wait a minute. So you was approved with no job, didn't even ask for the apartment.
Just working my business.
And you just was like, I'm going to step out on faith.
I'm going to just step out on faith. And I had $1,000 in my bank account. I said, I don't know how I'm about to pay this rent. I think the rent was like $1,300. I was like, I don't know how I'm doing. But I was like, God, I trust you. I literally sold almost everything I had, sold or gave it away. And whatever could fit in my truck, I had a Toyota RAV4. I threw that bad boy up in there. Maya was stuck in the middle like this in the back, but baby, we was out. And we drove down here. And literally, as I came, God gave me the clients, and everything was provided for. Even in the moments where I was like, God, I got $0. I got to pay this car note, da-da-da-da, boom. Someone will call me, I need a website. Someone will call me, I need a logo, whatever the case may be. Like, he always, 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 always provided.
Wow. Has there ever been a time that you felt like he wasn't going to provide?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I went through a really tough time here. So I got here at the end of 2020, really January 21, right? When I got here, I hit the ground running. I was like, let's do it, where we going, what we doing, right? I started to meet people who were scammers. I'm just gonna keep it a buck.
Yeah.
You know, and I even met someone who I collaborated with her because I was like, I want to get my feet wet, and this is a really big opportunity. Homegirl turned around and stole my whole idea. I did all
I think I know who you're talking
work.
about. I think I know who you're talking about, because guess what? This is not the first time that I've heard somebody where somebody went to go collaborate with this person, and next thing they know that their whole idea is taken, and she's the face of it, and she's acting like she did it, but always want to act like you're uplifting women, but you're not uplifting women. You're basically just using them for their story. But I ain't gonna say no name, because we're here to inspire,
and we're classy, honey. We don't have to, because God exposes, honey. I'll tell you that right now.
And they say this is the year. This is the year of exposure.
I've been seeing people get exposed left and right.
Yeah.
That's why I be chilling. Sometimes it's best for you to really be quiet and let God do it. Because the way he do things, you can't orchestrate it.
You can't. Our ways are not his ways. Our thoughts are not his thoughts.
Ain't. But honey, I was going through it. It was like one thing after the other, back to back. Like, I was like, what kind of spiritual warfare is this? And I mean, things just started to dry up for me. I had got one opportunity working with a really big influencer and artist, and then randomly they was like, oh, we don't have the budget no more. And I'm like, y'all know y'all lying. What's going on?
Yeah.
I know I didn't do anything. It just was like, I don't know. That was just a rough season for me. And I was absolutely on the verge of losing my place. And I was like, God, I said, you brought me here.
Right.
You brought me here.
I didn't ask to come in.
I did not.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, you can't let me get to the place that you've already brought me from. So I need you to wrap this thing up, because I'm representing you. That's my prayers now. I'm like, God, I represent you. If they see me falling, they're going to be looking at you.
Right.
Holla at me. You better handle it, because this ain't it.
Yeah.
And at first it was a little rocky still. I stayed on my face and I prayed, but eventually I got another place and things started to lift up for me again. But I realize now why I was going through that season. God was teaching me, everybody that's in your space is not trying to build you up. Some people are trying to sink the ship, especially because they aren't able to navigate their own ship. So sometimes people will leech onto you because they see where you're going. You may not even see the anointing on your life, but the enemy does.
Right.
And you glow to people.
Girl, you better preach. You better preach.
Okay. So they will latch onto you, and you thinking that it's a friend, you thinking that it's somebody that's going to help you, and things start to fall apart for you because deep down they're not happy for you. So God was like, wake up, pay attention, get back to the New Yorker that you are, where you know how to move and shake and know that everybody's not for you.
Yeah, that discernment.
So I got back to my quiet place, my secret place. I removed, and some people God removed. I didn't even have to do it. But he brought me to the place of not being upset about it anymore. Because sometimes people leave and you're like, well, what is going on? Like, what? I don't even question it no more. I don't even question it. I'm like, I know you know, God, it is what it is. Ain't no beef.
Ain't no hard feelings.
None of that.
I'm walking with my Father, and I don't care what y'all say.
Don't.
Period.
So that was the time, but I'm thankful for it. It brought me here. Now I'm in a place where I only attract the good things for me, the good people for me. I see you coming from a mile away. By spirit, I bind you. I'm
in a good place.
Yes.
And this episode was brought to you by the Heirs Agency, a full-service marketing firm noted in entertainment and culture. So, my love, what is next? What's your next?
Woo. So, remember we talked about telling the story at the beginning of this, and I said I finally am in a place where I'm ready to tell my story.
Right.
So I'm writing my own book.
Okay.
It's called Psalms of a Broken Healer. And I'm gonna tell my story how a Brooklyn girl who used to be a gang member is now.
I didn't know you was a gang member.
Sure was. I was in the Bloods. I was a different person at one point, and I need to tell the world how I survived that. I've gone to jail. I've dealt with molestation. I've dealt with so many things in my life.
Wait a minute now. You can't cheat us, baby. You can't cheat us. Do y'all hear this? You cannot cheat us, baby. You've been through a lot.
I have. I really have. Yeah. So it's time. It's time to write my book. I've been writing it. I'll be honest, my ADHD be kicking in and I'll be forgetting about it sometimes. But that is my next step. And just speaking more. I want to speak more. God is calling me to go on platforms and speak. So I'm positioning myself to do that. Maybe teach classes now because, of course, I love what I do. I love designing. But more people are coming to me to learn. And I've learned to take heed to things like that. That's God unctioning you that this is your next step. So,
yeah, that push that we sometimes ignore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're like, that's not what I do. But if more people keep asking you, that's what you should be doing.
How have you learned to tune into the voice of God?
He forced me. Because I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening. Even, like with the shelter, I wasn't listening. I was trying to do my own thing, you know. And now I've been beat so much, God. I know when the Lord is like, you better get it together, because the things that I'll try to go after, stupid things will happen. Things will fall apart just in a dumb way. And I'll be like, okay, all right. What you said you want me to do now, because I'm tired, you know? But he forced me, honey. It's a knowing. Everything comes with experience. Those are the greatest
teachers and lessons.
Yes.
Yeah. How have you been able to be bloomed into this beautiful butterfly after all the trauma that you've experienced? Like things that you didn't even go into depth, but you just brushed past it while sitting here, things that I didn't even know. How have you been able to be this free butterfly now?
It took a lot of anger, tears. I was a very angry teenager at one point. I was angry at the world. I was angry at God, because I was like, this is real trash. I had to get to different rock bottoms in my life to where it was like, I can't do nothing else but try something different. And I believe when God started to show me, like, there's life outside of Brooklyn, there's life outside of New York, and I started to travel a little more. I used to do music too. So I started traveling around the country, and I started seeing, like, everybody's not trash. Everybody's not out to get you.
Yeah.
And then when I had my daughter, it forced me to see from a parent's perspective, and I had to understand, like, you know what? My parents weren't who I needed them to be, but they only could love from the place that they're capable of, and how their upbringing was. So I had to give them grace, and then understand God was giving me grace this whole time, because he could have been took me out of here.
Yeah.
And so it started to force me to be more humble, and realize, like, I can go any day. So it's best that I be the reason why somebody smiles today, be the person that I needed as a kid, be the person that my daughter's going to say one day, like, yes, that's my mom. And, so in order to do that, you got to change your perspective. You have to live differently, and you have to embrace the light that God gave you.
And I know you experienced, like, church hurt early on, but you're past it, because I see you have another church home here in Atlanta. Yeah, I see you attend church faithfully. So you didn't let that, stop you either. And a lot of people, don't attend church, and some people feel like COVID gave them excuse or whatever.
Right.
But I do believe that you need to be
in the
worship.
building.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's power in numbers. Just like therapy sessions, the group therapy sessions, the people that are in rehabilitation centers, they're around like-minded people.
Right.
It makes you feel like you're not by yourself. Because I think all of us go through moments where we feel like we're the only person that's dealing with this. It's better to be in a place of worship. The Word of God tells us not to forsake the assembling of others.
Right.
And that's the reason why also the enemy gets you when you by yourself.
You better say it. And you know what I noticed too? They'll be like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to church. It's hypocrites.
Right.
But it's hypocrites wherever you go.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd be like, child, please, that's just an excuse. Get it together.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of people look at pastors as if they are God.
Oh my goodness.
And they're not.
And that's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a mistake because they're human just like us. They mess up just like you.
Yeah.
Like, leave them be. They just have a different calling than you have. But leave that person. Matter of fact, mind your business.
Right.
Because you lucky God didn't give him a revelation about you and the skeletons of your closet.
So when is this book going to be finished, honey? Because I got a feeling, baby, it's going to be juicy.
Ooh, it is, honey, because a lot of people don't know a lot about me. Because I just be
You
chilling.
real reserved, yeah.
Yeah. I am hoping that it would be ready by this summer. I want to definitely launch it before my birthday in August, Leo season.
Let's go.
So the summer is what I'm aiming for. I'm going to start like marketing a little bit before then and, but that's my goal.
Okay. Before you go, this is Break Free, and I know you haven't seen an episode yet because you just subscribed while you were sitting here.
I don't know what you're talking about. I watched all of them.
No, but here at Break Free, before you go, I have to ask you, tell me something that you're in bondage to and you need to break free from.
Ooh.
I love this question.
That
I love it
question
because
is
you know
fire.
what? It's because, and I don't like to tell people when we're on break. You know what I mean? Or before we
so
start.
you don't prepare.
Nope, because I want it to be authentic, and I know it makes people think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, little Wayne face. Ooh. Oh, I have to break free of the vision that I have for myself as a whole. God has given me dreams of me being on different stages and traveling, and there's several parts of me because it took me a long time to even gather the faith to be who I am now.
Right.
So I have my moments where I have my imposter syndrome and I don't believe that I belong. I have to break free from that because God gonna have his way one way or another. And
you do it his way, you can do it the hard way, but you got to do it.
And honestly, I'm tired. of fighting.
Yeah.
So that's I gotta break free really from myself.
Okay.
Really
all
from
right.
myself.
Tell everybody where to find you. Tell them where to find you.
Hey y'all. So you can find me on Instagram at the Fairy Brandmother. That's one word, okay? My website is makeyourimagematter.com because yes, your image does matter, honey. I'm on Facebook as well, but you'll find me under the business name Our Image Matters LLC.
Thank you so much, and again, thank you for all your brand needs that you give my brand. Thank you for just the conversations that we have, and I thank you. I also thank you that you now have the courage to tell the world all that Sabriya Reese has been through because I know it's going to set somebody free.
God. Thank you for having me, beautiful.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming by. Well, guys, there you have it. If you need your brand sprinkled by the Fairy Brandmother, reach out to her. Yes. And remember, it's always delusion until they see it happen. I'll see you next time.
That's my favorite.
And this episode was brought to you by the Heirs Agency, a full-service marketing firm noted in entertainment and culture.